Hi, everybody. My name is AC Star Tellington,
My name is Gabriel Sumayan Garcia.
and we are presenting on behalf of the BH Committee, where we are going to be talking about understanding mental health conditions. Okie Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide.
So for today's discussion, we will be talking about mental health and mental health conditions and how they relate to us. Then we will talk about stigma surrounding mental health conditions with an accompanying activity about JR's story. But first, AC will introduce to us what mental health is.
Cool. So before we understand mental health conditions, we have to understand mental health. What is mental health? So mental health is our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act, and it helps how we determine and handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. And it is incredibly important all throughout our life. Mental health is an integral and essential component of health. And just because we can't physically see its effects does not mean that its importance should be brushed under the rug. Indeed, there's no health without mental health. So it's important to find a balance within our own physical and mental well-being. Now that we understand what mental health is, let's get on to what is a mental health condition. So a mental health condition or conditions is a condition or conditions that affect the person's thinking, feeling, behavior, or mood. It can impact day-to-day living and may also affect our ability to relate to others. But throughout this, if you do have a mental health condition, remember, one, you are not alone, and two, mental health conditions are a lot more common than you may think. Likewise, mental health conditions can have several linking causes. It is not a singular pathway. It can be caused by multiple experiences and factors. It can relate to our very own identities as Filipino and Filipino-Americans. Likewise, how much money we make can take a part in it, working conditions that we are in, and our status as an immigrant. It can be genetic, so it can be passed down just like a physical illness can. Your environment can also be a factor of it, and lifestyle influence. Like I said before, our identity as brown people can also be cause a mental health condition. I think that we as a people are so work driven and focused on providing for the people that we love that we forget the struggles that we went through culturally as immigrants and our struggles as people of color in general. I believe that Filipinos are so forward focused that we forget to take time for ourselves, which is why it's so important to destigmatize what mental health and mental health conditions mean in our culture and how we are affected by it as Filipino and Filipino-Americans specifically. Now, speaking of destigmatization, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Gabe, where he will be talking about mental health stigma.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'll be talking about mental health stigma. So before we go into that, I will be defining what mental health stigma is. So what is stigma? For me, I view it as maybe viewing someone differently because of a certain thing about themselves. And so, what do you think of mental health and people who have a mental health condition? You know, from experience and growing up with my family and how they saw mental health, I always thought that having a mental health condition is because someone is crazy or nabaliw sila or nasira ulo. This is itself a stigma towards a person because, you know, even feeling sad, which is such a normal feeling that we all have, is marked with the idea that we are crazy or need to be taken care of. Having a mental health condition doesn't mean that we get to assume bad and hurtful things about a person because mental health conditions can come from so many different things, such as what AC told us earlier. We shouldn't base our perception of a person just because they seem quote unquote different due to a mental health condition. Stigma is not allowing us to fully understand a person. And you know, even pity is a form of stigma because we assume that, again, this person needs help and that we need to save them. To continue our discussion, we wanted to do a little activity with you all to reflect on our own thoughts about this topic and to understand our own perception of stigma, mental health, and mental health conditions. So, you know, I ask you all to self reflect for a moment and think about the questions that will come up after we present. So, me and AC will be reading an anecdote from someone who's been having a hard time. We introduce to you JR, a 40-year-old man. JR is a 40-year-old man who has been sleeping too much and refuses to eat with the family. The family notices that he's always in a bad mood, he never makes his bed, and would always leave the dishes out. He isn't cleaning up for himself, and his family just can't handle how stubborn and lazy he has become.
So, Gabe, do you think that there's something wrong with JR?
Honestly, I think so.
Why did you have these thoughts?
I had these thoughts because, his actions and his behavior are making his family upset, and, he's not really taking care of himself and the living space.
Do you think JR is having problems?
Yes, because I don't believe that Jared's always like this. I don't think this is his personality or this is him. There's something more going on with him, and I really want to understand, what's happening to him inside and internally.
Would you talk to JR?
I don't know how and honestly when, but I would try to find a way to talk to him where he's comfortable opening up to me so that I can understand how he's feeling. Especially if I was one of the people living with him, I really don't want him to always feel like this. And I kind of just want my friend back.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. I would definitely talk to him as well, to make sure that he doesn't feel alone. Little things that I noticed in our statement, in our anecdotes, such as sleeping too much or refusing to eat, are telltale signs of depression and anxiety. So I would definitely check up on him and ensure him that he has a shoulder to lean on for his struggles. So for this presentation, our main purpose was to emphasize the fact that having a mental health condition does not mean that you're broken or that your family did something wrong. Problems with mental health is no one's fault. Recovery, including meaningful roles in social life, school, and work is possible, especially when you start treatment early and play a strong role in your own recovery process. And like we said before, there's multiple linking causes. As I said before, our identities as people of color has a factor in it. But again, there are certain things that we can do to better our mental health and our mental well-being. The picture on one can be talking about our feelings to someone that we care about, letting some of that steam out and realizing the fact that we are struggling can help us better progress in our mental health. Keeping active and exercising, whether it be by yourself or with people, can definitely make a positive impact on your mental health. Exercising raises our happy chemicals in our brain. So doing that will definitely make us a little bit, keep our mental health stable. Likewise, doing something you love, hobbies, whether it be making music, creating art. I know for me personally, I love planting plants. I'm definitely a big plant mom, and it definitely reduces my stress levels and betters my mental health. And finally, keeping yourself grounded. One way to do that would be meditating, and like keeping you grounded to what you want to do and what you want to progress in. We want to emphasize the fact that, again, like mental health is very important. So it's important, and we only have one life to live. So it's important to take care of ourselves and our physical and mental well-being.
Yeah, and before we end the presentation today, me and AC just wanted to provide some resources just in case today's discussion may have brought up feelings and emotions that you've been feeling, or that's a friend or family member who's going through similar things that maybe JR felt in his anecdote. And salamat po, ingat kayo at happy Valentine's Day.